She was in the bedroom packing her suitcase when she heard his voice behind her. For 3 years of marriage, he'd barely touched her, barely looked at her, kept her at arm's length like she was made of glass that would shatter if he got too close. But tonight, as she folded the last of her clothes into the bag that would take her away from this cold, empty mansion forever, his voice came out broken in a way she'd never heard before. "Try it tonight, please. Just once. Before you go." She turned to find the most feared man in the city standing in her doorway with tears in his eyes, and she realized she didn't know her husband at all. This is the story of Elena Martinez, a 30-year-old woman who married into one of America's most powerful crime families and spent 3 years living like a ghost in her own home. Her husband, Dante Castellano, ruled the East Coast underworld with absolute authority. Men trembled when he spoke. Rivals disappeared when they challenged him. But in their marriage, he was distant, cold, treating Elena with a careful politeness that felt worse than hatred. No intimacy, no affection. Separate bedrooms from their wedding night forward. For 3 years, Elena tried to understand why he'd married her if he didn't want her. For 3 years, she lived in a beautiful prison, surrounded by luxury but starving for human connection. Tonight was supposed to be the night she finally escaped. But the words he spoke in that doorway would reveal a truth so devastating, so heartbreaking, that it would rewrite everything she thought she knew about the man she married and the 3 years they'd lost. Before we go deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, subscribe to Lover's Corner Diary so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Comment watching if you're ready for a love story about sacrifice so painful it looked like indifference. To understand why Elena was leaving, you need to understand what those 3 years looked like. Their wedding had been spectacular, a cathedral ceremony attended by 500 guests, most of them powerful families from organized crime networks across the country. Elena wore a custom Vera Wang gown. Dante wore an Italian suit that cost more than most people's cars. They exchanged vows in front of everyone who mattered in their world. And when the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," Dante gave her the briefest, most formal kiss Elena had ever experienced, lips barely touching, over in a second. That should have been the first sign. But Elena was young, naive, and had genuinely believed Dante loved her when he proposed. Their wedding night, Elena waited in the master bedroom, wearing the delicate lingerie she'd chosen specifically for this moment. She was nervous but excited, ready to truly begin their life together. Dante never came to bed. She found him the next morning in a guest room down the hall, already dressed, drinking coffee, reading the newspaper like nothing was unusual. "Did I do something wrong?" Elena had asked, her voice small. "No," Dante replied without looking up. "I thought it better we maintain separate spaces, for comfort." "But we're married," Elena said, confusion and hurt warring in her chest. "Yes," Dante agreed. "And I'll provide everything you need. You'll want for nothing. But I think it's best we keep certain boundaries." Elena had stood there in the doorway, still wearing her silk robe, feeling more exposed and rejected than she'd ever felt in her life. That set the tone for everything that followed. Elena lived in a mansion with 12 bedrooms, but she might as well have been alone. Dante was polite, but distant. He asked about her day at dinner, listened to her answers, but never engaged beyond surface conversation. He never asked what she was thinking or feeling, never touched her beyond the occasional formal hand on her back at public events, never looked at her the way a husband should look at a wife. At first, Elena tried everything. She cooked his favorite meals, even though they had staff for that. She dressed beautifully, hoping to catch his eye. She tried initiating conversations about deeper topics, about them, about their future. Nothing worked. Dante remained courteous, but completely closed off, like there was a wall between them that Elena couldn't see but could definitely feel. She started to think he was having an affair, that he'd married her for some strategic reason but kept a mistress elsewhere. But there was no evidence of other women. No late nights with lipstick on his collar, no mysterious phone calls, no secret texts. Just absence. Emotional absence that felt worse than betrayal, because at least betrayal would have meant he cared about something. After 6 months of this, Elena tried to talk to Dante's mother, Sophia, a formidable woman who'd raised 3 sons in the Mafia world. "Why did Dante marry me if he doesn't want me?" Elena asked, trying not to cry. Sophia had looked at her with something like pity. "My son has his reasons for everything he does. Trust that he's protecting you even if you don't understand how." "Protecting me from what?" Elena pressed. "From things you don't need to know about," Sophia said firmly. "Be grateful for what you have. Many women would kill for your life." But Elena didn't want the mansion or the money or the security. She wanted her husband to look at her like she mattered. She wanted to be touched, held, loved by the man who'd promised to love her forever in front of 500 witnesses. A year into the marriage, Elena noticed something strange. Dante was obsessive about her safety in ways that went beyond normal security. She had bodyguards everywhere she went. A driver who was actually trained special forces. Cameras throughout the house. Rules about where she could go and when. "I'm not a prisoner," Elena said one night when Dante told her she couldn't go to a charity event she'd been planning to attend for months. "I didn't say you were," Dante replied calmly. "I said it's not safe." "Why? What's happening that you're not telling me?" "Nothing you need to worry about." The conversation ended there, like all their conversations ended, with Dante shutting down and Elena left with more questions than answers. By year 2, Elena had stopped trying. She lived her life as if she were single, just happened to live in someone else's house. She took online classes in art history. She volunteered at a local women's shelter, one of the few places Dante allowed her to go regularly. She read books, painted, existed in her own world because trying to exist in Dante's was too painful. She watched other couples at the events they were required to attend together. Watched husbands touch their wives' hands, whisper in their ears, look at them with affection or desire or just simple acknowledgement that they were there. Dante never did any of those things. He would introduce her. "This is my wife, Elena." But the words felt hollow, a title without meaning. 3 years in, Elena realized she couldn't do this anymore. The loneliness was eating her alive. She was 30 years old, married but living like a widow, dying slowly in a golden cage. So she made a decision. She would leave. Not ask permission, not threaten, not try one more time to make Dante explain. Just go. She planned it carefully. Waited for a night when Dante had a business meeting that would keep him out late. Packed one suitcase with essentials. Called a friend from before her marriage, who'd agreed to let Elena stay with her until she figured out her next steps. She left her wedding ring on the dresser. She wrote a note that said simply, "I can't live like this anymore. I'm sorry. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for because it clearly isn't me." And she was closing the suitcase, hand on the handle, ready to walk out, when Dante's voice came from the doorway. She hadn't heard him come home, hadn't heard him climb the stairs, but there he was, still in his suit from the meeting, and the expression on his face was something Elena had never seen before. Devastation. Pure, unfiltered devastation. "You're leaving," Dante said. Not a question. A statement, like he'd been expecting this, maybe even waiting for it. "Yes," Elena said, and her voice was steadier than she felt. "I should have left 2 years ago." Dante nodded slowly. "You should have. You should never have been here in the first place." The words stung, even though Elena knew he was right. "Then why did you marry me? If you never wanted me, why go through with it?" "I didn't say I didn't want you," Dante said, and something in his voice cracked. I said you shouldn't be here. Those are very different things. I don't understand the difference, Elena said. I know, Dante replied. That's what I've been counting on. He walked into the room, but stopped several feet away from her, like there was an invisible line he couldn't cross. If I ask you to stay, will you? Dante asked. Why would I? Elena shot back. You've spent 3 years making it clear you don't want me here. You don't touch me, don't talk to me, barely look at me. I'm not your wife, Dante. I'm just someone who lives in your house. So tell me why the hell I would stay. Because if you leave, you'll die, Dante said flatly. The bluntness of it stopped Elena cold. What? You'll die, Dante repeated. Maybe not tonight, maybe not this month, but eventually they'll find you. And when they do, they'll kill you slowly and painfully, specifically to hurt me. That's why you should stay. Because as long as you're in this house, under my protection, you're safe. Elena's mind was reeling. Who? Who wants to kill me? People who want to destroy me, Dante said. And the easiest way to destroy me is to take away the one thing that actually matters. But I don't matter to you, Elena said, confusion and frustration mixing. You've made that very clear. Have I? Dante asked, and there was something bitter in his voice. Or have I just been very good at making sure no one, including you, knows how much you matter? He moved closer, still maintaining that invisible distance. Do you remember the week before our wedding, when you were visiting your sister in California? Yes, Elena said cautiously. You were gone for 4 days, Dante continued. In those 4 days, I didn't sleep, at all. I had 6 men stationed around your sister's house. I monitored every phone call, every movement. When you went to the grocery store alone, I nearly had a heart attack. Do you know why? Elena shook her head, unable to speak. Because Marco Vieri had just issued a contract on my family, Dante said. Any member of my family, and you, my fiancé, were about to become a target. I married you anyway because canceling would have drawn more attention. But from that day forward, I had one job: keep you alive. Elena sat down on the edge of the bed, her legs suddenly unable to hold her weight. You're saying, all of this, the separate bedrooms, the distance, the coldness, it was to protect me. Not just protect, Dante said, and he finally sat down too, but on the chair across the room, maintaining that careful space between them. To make you invisible. I don't understand, Elena said. In my world, people look for weaknesses, Dante explained. If I had claimed you the way a husband normally claims a wife, if I had shown any affection, any attachment, any indication that you mattered to me, you would have become the primary target. So I had to make it look like you didn't matter. Like you were just a strategic marriage, a business arrangement, nothing more. You made me think you didn't want me, Elena said, and tears were starting to fall now. For 3 years, you made me feel unwanted and invisible and worthless to protect me? Yes, Dante said simply. And it killed me every single day. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped, and for the first time in 3 years, Elena saw emotion on his face. Real, raw emotion. Do you know what it's like? Dante said, his voice rough. To come home every day to the woman you love and not be able to touch her? To sit across from her at dinner and not be able to tell her she's beautiful? To lie awake at night knowing she's 30 feet away and you can't go to her because if you do, you'll sign her death warrant? You love me? Elena whispered. I've loved you since the day I met you, Dante said. That's why this has been so impossible. If I didn't care, it would have been easy to keep my distance, but caring made everyday torture. Elena thought back over 3 years of marriage. The bodyguards, she said slowly. Yes, Dante confirmed. The rules about where I could go. Yes. The way you'd tense up whenever anyone came near me at events. Yes. The staff member you fired for being disrespectful. He touched your shoulder, Dante said, and there was still anger in his voice. He had no right. You were protecting me the whole time, Elena said, pieces clicking into place. But you made me feel like you didn't care at all. I had to, Dante said. Marco Vieri had people everywhere, in my organization, in my house, watching everything I did. If I had shown you affection, if I had claimed you as mine in any real way, he would have known exactly how to hurt me. So I maintained the appearance that you were just an obligation, a wife in name only, something I tolerated but didn't value. Did it work? Elena asked. You're alive, Dante said simply. So yes, it worked. Elena stood up, pacing now, trying to process all of this. 3 years. You kept me at arm's length for 3 years. When does it end? When do I get to actually be your wife? Yesterday, Dante said. The single word hung in the air. What? Yesterday, Marco Vieri died, Dante said. Heart attack. Completely natural causes. Confirmed by 3 independent sources. His organization is in chaos. His sons are fighting over succession. No one is thinking about decade-old vendettas anymore. The threat that's controlled my life for the last 3 years ended yesterday. Elena felt something break open in her chest. So, when you came home tonight and found me packing, I realized I'd done too good a job convincing you I didn't want you, Dante finished. I'd protected you so well that I'd lost you anyway. He stood up, and for the first time, he crossed the invisible line. He walked over to Elena, stopping just inches from her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, smell his cologne, see the pain etched in every line of his face. For 3 years, Dante said, his voice barely above a whisper, I've wanted to touch you, to hold you, to show you that you're not just my wife, you're everything. But I couldn't. And now that I finally can, you're leaving. Which I deserve. I know I deserve. But I'm asking anyway. His hand came up, hovering near her face but not quite touching, like he still didn't believe he had permission. Try it tonight, he said. Please, just once. Let me show you what I couldn't show you for 3 years. Let me love you the way I've wanted to from the beginning. And if after that you still want to leave, I'll let you go. No guards, no rules, no protection. I'll let you walk away. But please, give me one night to try to make up for all the nights I couldn't. If you're still watching, comment "still watching" and tell me. Would you stay for that one night? Or would 3 years of pain be too much to forgive? Elena's hand was trembling as she reached up to touch Dante's face. The moment her fingers made contact with his skin, he closed his eyes and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 3 years. You really love me? She whispered. More than anything, Dante said, his eyes still closed, like he was afraid if he opened them, this moment would disappear. Then why didn't you tell me? Even if you couldn't touch me, why didn't you at least tell me the truth? Because you're not a good liar, Dante said, opening his eyes to look at her. If you'd known, if you'd understood what was happening, you would have looked at me differently. You would have softened toward me, and Vieri's people would have seen it. They were watching us constantly, looking for any sign of weakness, any leverage. I needed you to genuinely believe I didn't care. It was the only way to keep you safe. He took her hand, the one touching his face, and pressed it harder against his cheek, like he was trying to memorize the feeling. Do you want to know the worst part? The nights you cried. Elena's breath caught. She'd thought she'd been quiet, burying her face in her pillow so no one would hear. You heard me? Every time, Dante said, and there were tears in his eyes now, too. My room is directly below yours. I could hear you crying and I couldn't come to you. I couldn't comfort you. I'd lie there listening to you break and knowing I was the one breaking you, and it took everything I had not to run upstairs and tell you the truth." "That's cruel," Elena said. "I know," Dante agreed. "Loving someone and having to hurt them to keep them safe is the cruelest thing I've ever experienced. There were nights I thought about just ending it, telling you everything, taking the risk. But then I'd think about what Vieri would do to you if he got his hands on you, and I'd find the strength to stay away for one more day." He let go of her hand and walked to his jacket, pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then handed it to her. "I need you to understand the threat was real. This isn't just paranoia or control. This is what I was protecting you from." Elena looked at the phone. It was a folder of documents, photos, reports. She started scrolling, and with each image her blood ran colder. Surveillance photos of her, hundreds of them. At the grocery store, at the women's shelter where she volunteered, at coffee shops, in her car. Each photo was time-stamped and had notes. Target, Elena Castellano. Vulnerability, isolated, unguarded, soft target. There were intercepted communications from Vieri's organization, plans to kidnap her. Detailed torture scenarios designed specifically to break Dante by destroying her. Transcripts of conversations where Vieri's men discussed the best way to use her against her husband. "This is from the first year of our marriage," Dante said quietly. "They were actively planning to take you. I had to double your security 3 times. I had to make them believe you weren't worth the effort, that taking you wouldn't accomplish anything because I didn't care enough for it to matter." Elena's hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. "They were going to—" "Yes," Dante said, "and they would have, if they'd thought it would hurt me. So I made sure they didn't think that. I made sure everyone, including you, believed you were just a convenient wife, nothing special, nothing worth the risk." "But you were protecting me this whole time," Elena said, looking up at him. "Every second," Dante confirmed. "The bodyguards you thought were excessive. They stopped 3 kidnapping attempts in the first year alone. The rules about where you could go, those were based on specific intelligence about where Vieri's men were positioned. The distance I maintained, that was me choosing your life over my happiness. Every single day for 3 years. Elena sat back down on the bed, the phone still in her hands, scrolling through evidence of a war she hadn't known was being fought around her. "The charity event you wouldn't let me go to," she said, remembering. "That night 2 years ago. You said it wasn't safe." "Vieri was going to be there," Dante said. "We had intel that he planned to approach you directly, try to get inside your head, make you doubt me so you'd be easier to manipulate later. I couldn't risk it. The weekend I wanted to visit my sister last year, and you said no." 2 of Vieri's men had bought plane tickets on the same flight, Dante said. "If you'd gotten on that plane, you wouldn't have made it to California." Elena looked up at him, tears streaming down her face now. "You've been fighting a war to keep me alive, and I didn't even know." "That was the point," Dante said gently. "If you'd known, you would have been afraid. I didn't want you to live in fear. I wanted you to have as normal a life as possible, even if that meant you hated me for making it so restricted." "I didn't hate you," Elena said. "I just thought you didn't want me." "I wanted you so much it physically hurt," Dante said. "Do you know how many times I stood outside your bedroom door at night, hand on the doorknob, telling myself I could just go in for a minute? Just to see you sleeping peacefully? Just to make sure you were okay? But I never did. Because if I'd gone in once, I wouldn't have been able to leave. And the moment I claimed you, the moment I showed that kind of attachment, you'd be dead within a week." He walked to the window, looking out at the grounds that were lit up with security lights. "There was one night, about a year ago. You don't remember this because you were asleep. But I came upstairs because I heard something and I needed to make sure you were safe. I opened your door just a crack, and you were having a nightmare. You were crying in your sleep, calling for someone to help you. And I stood there for 45 minutes watching you struggle, wanting more than anything to wake you up and comfort you, but knowing I couldn't. Knowing that if I did, I'd break, and everything I'd sacrifice to keep you safe would be for nothing. He turned back to look at her. So yes, I kept my distance. Yes, I made you feel unwanted. Yes, I hurt you in ways I'll never be able to fully make up for. But every single moment of that pain was me choosing your life over my own happiness. And I'd do it again. I'd do it 1,000 times if it meant you stayed alive. Elena set the phone down and stood up, walking over to where Dante stood by the window. For the first time in 3 years, she was the one crossing the distance. The one reaching for him instead of waiting for him to reach for her. "Show me," she said. Dante looked at her, confusion and hope warring on his face. "Show you what?" "Everything you couldn't show me," Elena said. "All the touches you couldn't give, all the words you couldn't say, all the love you had to hide. Show me, now, tonight, before I lose my nerve or change my mind or remember how much the last 3 years hurt." Dante's jaw tightened. "Elena, you don't have to—" "I know I don't have to," she interrupted. "But I want to. I need to. I need to know if what we could have had is worth forgiving what we lost." She reached for his hand, and the moment their fingers intertwined, something shifted in Dante's expression. 3 years of iron control started to crack. "If I start," he said, his voice rough, "I won't be able to be gentle. I won't be able to go slow. I've been holding back for too long." "Then don't be gentle," Elena said. "Don't go slow. Just be real. That's all I want. For you to finally be real with me." Dante pulled her against him, and the sound that came out of his chest was half relief, half agony. His arms wrapped around her like he was trying to absorb her into his skin, hold her so close that nothing could ever separate them again. "I've missed you," he whispered into her hair. "Every day for 3 years I've missed you even though you were right here." Elena could feel him shaking, this man who was feared by everyone who knew his name, trembling like a leaf as he held her. "I'm here now," she said. "I'm right here." They stayed like that for a long moment, just holding each other, making up for 3 years of carefully maintained distance. Then Dante pulled back just enough to look at her face. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Before we go any further, I need you to know the whole truth." "What truth?" Elena asked. "Why I married you," Dante said. "You think I married you because of the alliance, because your family had connections I needed, because it was strategic. Everyone thinks that. I let them think that. But that's not why I married you." "Then why?" "Because the first time I saw you," Dante said, "at that charity fundraiser 3.5 years ago, you smiled at me. Do you remember?" Elena thought back. She'd been volunteering at a fundraiser for a children's hospital, and Dante had been there with his family. She'd handed him a program and smiled, because that's what you did. She didn't remember anything special about the moment. "You smiled at me like I was just a person," Dante continued. "Not a Castellano. Not someone to fear or manipulate or use, just a person. And I realized I'd spent my entire life surrounded by people who wanted something from me. And here was this woman who wanted nothing except to hand me a program and move on to the next guest." "That's why you married me?" Elena asked. "Because I smiled at you?" "I married you because I fell in love with you in that moment," Dante said. "And then I spent 3 months getting to know you, falling deeper, realizing you were everything I'd never let myself hope for. Kind without being weak, strong without being hard, real in a world where everyone wears masks. I married you because I couldn't imagine my life without you in it." "And then you spent 3 years pushing me away," Elena said. "Because the week before our wedding, Vieri made his move," Dante said. "He'd been waiting, watching, seeing who mattered to me. The moment I proposed to you, he knew. He knew you were my weakness. So he made it clear that if I went through with the marriage, you'd become a target. I could have called it off. Probably should have. But I was selfish. I wanted you in my life, even if it meant I couldn't have you the way I wanted. So I married you and spent 3 years trying to make everyone, including you, believe you didn't matter to me. That's so messed up, Elena said, but there was no anger in her voice, just sadness for all they'd lost. I know, Dante agreed, but I didn't know how else to keep you safe, and keeping you safe was more important than keeping you happy. Was it worth it? Elena asked. Sacrificing 3 years? Ask me tomorrow, Dante said. If you're still here tomorrow morning, if you haven't left despite everything I've put you through, then yes, it was worth it. Because it means I get to have a future with you. But if you're gone, if tonight doesn't change anything, then no, it wasn't worth it. Because I'll have lost you anyway. Elena reached up and pulled his face down to hers. I'm not going anywhere, she whispered against his lips. Not tonight. Just tonight? Dante asked. We'll see, Elena said. Show me why I should stay forever. What happened next was 3 years of pent-up longing finally breaking free. Dante kissed her like a man starving, like he was trying to make up for 1,000 kisses he'd denied himself. His hands were in her hair, on her face, sliding down her back, mapping her body like he was memorizing every curve after years of only being able to look from a distance. Elena kissed him back with equal desperation, 3 years of rejection and loneliness pouring out in the way she pressed against him, the way her fingers dug into his shoulders, the way she whispered his name between kisses like a prayer. They made it to the bed, the suitcase forgotten on the floor, and Dante pulled back for just a moment, looking down at her with an expression so full of love and regret and hope that it made Elena's chest ache. I love you, he said. I should have said it every day for 3 years, but I'm saying it now. I love you. You're everything. I love you too, Elena said, and she realized it was true. Despite the pain, despite the confusion, despite 3 years of feeling unwanted, she loved him. Maybe she'd never stopped. Dante's hands were gentle as he undressed her, reverent, like she was something precious he'd been afraid to touch for too long. Every kiss he placed on newly exposed skin felt like an apology, a promise, a plea for forgiveness. I'm sorry, he whispered against her collarbone. For every night I left you alone. For every time you cried and I didn't come. For every moment you felt unwanted when you're the most wanted thing in my entire world. I'm so sorry. Show me, Elena said again. Stop apologizing and show me. So he did. And for the first time in their 3-year marriage, they came together as husband and wife should, with nothing between them, no walls, no distance, no pretending. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and hungry, and 3 years of denial finally breaking through. But it was also tender. Every touch communicating what words couldn't, every kiss a promise that this time he wouldn't let her go. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Dante's arms wrapped around Elena like he was afraid she'd disappear if he loosened his grip. Stay, he whispered into her hair. Please stay. I'm here, Elena said. I'm not leaving. Promise me, Dante said, and there was real fear in his voice. Promise me you won't leave while I'm sleeping. Promise me I won't wake up alone. I promise, Elena said, and she meant it. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, making up for 3 years of sleeping alone in rooms 30 feet apart, but a world away from each other. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through the windows, and Dante's arms still around her. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming, that the last night had been some elaborate fantasy her lonely mind had created. But then Dante stirred, his arms tightening around her, and she knew it was real. You're still here, he said, his voice rough with sleep and relief. I promised I would be. Elena replied. Dante pulled back to look at her, and there was wonder in his expression, like he couldn't quite believe she hadn't left in the night. I half convinced myself you'd be gone, that you'd realize you couldn't forgive 3 years of hurt in one night. Can I ask you something? Elena said. Anything. Last night you showed me evidence of the threat. You showed me why you had to keep your distance. But how do I know that was real? How do I know this whole thing isn't just an elaborate story to keep me here? It was a fair question, and Dante didn't seem offended by it. Instead, he reached for his phone on the nightstand and pulled up something else. Call this number, he said, handing her the phone. What is it? FBI. Agent Michael Torres. He's been working the Vieri case for 6 years. He'll confirm everything I told you. Elena stared at the number. You want me to call the FBI? I want you to know I'm telling the truth, Dante said. I want you to hear from an independent source that the threat was real, that Vieri was planning to kill you, that everything I did was necessary. Call him. I already cleared it with him. He's expecting you. Elena made the call. Agent Torres answered on the second ring, and for the next 20 minutes, he confirmed every detail of Dante's story, the surveillance on Elena, the kidnapping plans, the specific threats, the timeline of when Vieri's organization fell apart. Mrs. Castellano, Agent Torres said at the end of the call, I know this has been hell for you, but I need you to understand something. Your husband saved your life. Multiple times. The protocols he put in place. The distance he maintained. That's the only reason you're alive to have this conversation. Marco Vieri was a monster. What he did to people who got in his way. The agent trailed off. Let's just say your husband made the right call, even though I know it cost him. Elena thanked him and hung up, handing the phone back to Dante. It's all true, she said. Yes, Dante confirmed. But does knowing that make it hurt less? I don't know, Elena admitted. Maybe. It helps to understand why, but it doesn't erase 3 years of feeling rejected. I know, Dante said, and I don't expect it to. I just need you to know that every moment of that rejection was me dying inside while trying to keep you alive. They lay there in silence for a while, both processing everything that had been revealed. Then Elena spoke. I need to know something else. Now that the threat is gone, now that Vieri is dead, what happens to us? Do we just pretend the last 3 years didn't happen and start over? I don't think we can pretend they didn't happen, Dante said. But maybe we can use them. Maybe we can take all that pain and use it to build something stronger. Because we know now what we're capable of surviving. We know what we're willing to sacrifice for each other. What were you willing to sacrifice? Elena asked. Your happiness, Dante said. Watching you hurt every day and not being able to fix it. That was my sacrifice. What were you willing to sacrifice? My sanity, Elena said with a small, sad laugh. 3 years of not understanding, of thinking I wasn't wanted, of trying to make sense of a marriage that made no sense. That almost broke me. I'm sorry, Dante said, and there were tears in his eyes again. I'm so sorry for all of it. Stop apologizing, Elena said. You did what you had to do. I'm not saying it doesn't hurt. I'm not saying I'm completely okay. But I understand now, and understanding helps. She turned to face him fully. But I need to know, right now, with complete honesty, if another threat emerged, would you do it again? Would you push me away again to protect me? Dante was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then he said, I hope I'd find another way. I hope I'd be smart enough to protect you without destroying us in the process. But if I'm being completely honest, if it came down to keeping you safe or keeping you happy, I'd choose safe every time. Because I can live with you hating me. I can't live with you being dead. That's what I thought, Elena said, and there was something resigned in her voice. Which means this could happen again. You could decide I need protecting and shut me out again. No, Dante said firmly. Because now you know. Now you understand how my mind works. So if there's ever another threat, we face it together. I don't hide things from you. I don't push you away. We figure out how to keep you safe while keeping us intact. Deal? Deal, Elena said. But you have to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets, Elena said. No more deciding what I can and can't handle. No more protecting me by keeping me in the dark. We're partners, equals. You don't get to make unilateral decisions about our marriage anymore. Even if I think I'm protecting you? Dante asked. Especially then, Elena said, because your protection almost lost me anyway. If I'd left last night, if you hadn't caught me, you would have lost me while trying to save me. That's not protection, that's self-destruction. Dante nodded slowly. You're right. God, you're right. I was so focused on keeping you alive that I didn't think about whether you'd want to stay alive in a marriage that felt like a prison. Exactly, Elena said. So from now on, we make decisions together. We face threats together. We figure out solutions together. Otherwise, what's the point of being married? Okay, Dante agreed. Together. No more secrets. No more distance. Even if it scares me. Even if my instinct is to protect you by pushing you away. I'll fight that instinct. Good, Elena said. Because I can't do another 3 years of this. I won't survive it. You won't have to, Dante promised. I swear to you, on everything I have, I will never shut you out again. They sealed the promise with a kiss, and it felt different from the kisses the night before. Less desperate, more grounded. A promise being made, not just passion being released. I'm hungry, Elena said when they pulled apart. And we have 3 years of breakfast to make up for. Do you want to eat together? Like actually together at the same table, having a conversation? Dante laughed. And it was the first time Elena had heard him laugh in their entire marriage. I would love nothing more. They got dressed and went downstairs, and when they walked into the kitchen together, hand in hand, the house staff did a visible double-take. For 3 years they'd watched this couple live like strangers. Seeing them together, touching, looking at each other with affection, was like witnessing a miracle. Dante made eggs while Elena made coffee, and they moved around the kitchen in a dance that should have been awkward, but felt natural, like their bodies had been waiting 3 years to learn this rhythm. They sat at the kitchen table, knees touching under the table, and talked. Really talked, for the first time in their marriage. About everything and nothing. About Dante's business, which he'd always kept her separate from. About Elena's volunteer work, which he'd always seemed disinterested in but now asked detailed questions about. About their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. I want kids, Elena said at one point. Do you? Dante's expression softened. Yes, God, yes. I've wanted kids with you since before we got married. But I couldn't risk it while Vieri was alive. A child would have been an even bigger target than you were. And now? Elena asked. Now I want to give you everything I couldn't give you for 3 years, Dante said. Starting with a real marriage. And if that leads to kids, I'd be honored. They spent the entire day together, something they'd never done before. Dante canceled all his meetings. Elena ignored all her usual routines. They just existed together, talking, laughing, making up for lost time. That night, Dante led Elena back upstairs, and this time when they made love, it was different. Slower, more tender, less about desperation and more about connection. Learning each other's bodies properly for the first time, taking their time, communicating what they liked and didn't like, building something new on the foundation of all they'd survived. Afterward, as they lay in the dark, Elena said something that had been on her mind all day. I forgive you. Dante went very still. What? For the 3 years, Elena clarified, for the distance and the coldness and the pain. I forgive you, not because it didn't hurt, but because I understand now, and because holding on to that hurt isn't going to help us move forward. Dante's arms tightened around her. I don't deserve that. Probably not, Elena agreed, but I'm giving it to you anyway. Because that's what love is. Forgiving things that hurt because the person is worth more than the pain. I love you, Dante whispered. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret staying. I know, Elena said, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life reminding you that you're allowed to love me out loud now. No more hiding. No more pretending. Just us. Real and messy and complicated. But us. Us, Dante repeated. I like the sound of that. They fell asleep wrapped around each other again, and this time there was no fear that one of them would be gone in the morning. Just peace. The kind of peace that comes from finally being able to stop fighting and start loving. 6 months later, Elena sat in the garden of the mansion that had felt like a prison but was starting to feel like a home. She was painting, something she'd done throughout her marriage, but now did with Dante sitting nearby, watching her work with an expression of contentment. Their marriage wasn't perfect. They still had moments where Dante's protective instincts clashed with Elena's need for independence. They still had to actively work against 3 years of bad habits, of distance and silence and separation. But they were working on it, together. Dante had been true to his word. No more secrets. No more unilateral decisions. When threats came up in his business, and they did because that was the world he lived in, he told Elena about them. They discussed security measures together. She gave input on what she was and wasn't comfortable with, and slowly they were building a marriage that actually felt like a partnership. Elena's suitcase, the one she'd been packing that night 6 months ago, still sat in the back of her closet. She kept it there as a reminder, not of leaving, but of staying, of choosing love even when love had hurt her, of giving second chances when they were earned. What are you thinking about? Dante asked, looking up from the book he was reading. That night, Elena said. The night I was leaving. Do you regret staying? Dante asked, and even now, 6 months later, there was still uncertainty in his voice when he asked that question. No, Elena said honestly, but I also don't regret almost leaving, because I think you needed to see that I was serious, that I wasn't just going to accept being unhappy forever. Sometimes you have to be willing to walk away to make someone realize they need to fight for you. I was prepared to let you go, Dante admitted. That night, if you'd still wanted to leave after I told you everything, I would have let you. No guards, no rules, no protection. Just let you walk away and hope that you'd be safe without me. Would I have been? Elena asked. Safe? Probably, Dante said. Vieri was dead. The immediate threat was gone. But there are always threats in my world. And I don't know if I could have lived with myself if something had happened to you after I let you go. That's the thing about love, isn't it? Elena said. You can't control everything. You can't eliminate every risk. At some point, you have to trust that the person you love is strong enough to face whatever comes. And you have to be willing to face it with them instead of for them. When did you get so wise? Dante asked with a smile. 3 years of forced solitude gives you a lot of time to think, Elena said dryly. Dante stood up and walked over to where she sat, looking at the painting she was working on. It was a portrait of the two of them, standing together in the garden, touching, connected, visible. It's beautiful, he said. It's us, Elena said. The U.S. we should have been from the beginning. The U.S. we're finally becoming. Dante leaned down and kissed the top of her head. I have something for you. What? Dante pulled a small box from his pocket and handed it to her. Elena opened it to find a necklace, delicate and beautiful, with a pendant that had a date engraved on it. "What's this date?" she asked. "The night you almost left," Dante said. "The night everything changed. The night I finally got to love you the way I'd wanted to from the beginning. I want you to remember that night. Not as the night I almost lost you, but as the night I finally chose us over fear." Elena put the necklace on, and Dante fastened it around her neck, his fingers lingering on her skin in a way that still made her shiver even 6 months later. "Thank you," she said, "for fighting for us, for being honest, for giving me a reason to stay." "Thank you for staying," Dante said, "for forgiving me, for seeing past 3 years of mistakes to the love underneath." They stood in the garden together, and Elena thought about all they'd been through. The pain of feeling unwanted, the revelation of why, the choice to forgive, the work of rebuilding. It hadn't been easy. It still wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Because love that survives testing is stronger than love that never gets challenged. And their love had been tested in ways most people never experience. "Do you ever wonder," Elena asked, "what our marriage would have been like if Vieri had never been a threat? If we'd been able to just be normal from the beginning?" "Sometimes," Dante admitted. "But then I remember that nothing about my life is normal. Nothing about my world allows for normal. So maybe what we have, this hard-won, battle-scarred love, maybe that's the only kind of normal we were ever going to get." "I can live with that," Elena said. "As long as we're living it together." "Always," Dante promised. "From now on, always together." They stayed in the garden until sunset, talking about their future, about the life they were building, about the children they hoped to have, about growing old together in a way they'd earned through surviving the hard years. That night, as they lay in bed, Elena's head on Dante's chest, she said something she'd been thinking about for weeks. "I want to renew our vows." Dante's hand, which had been stroking her hair, paused. "What?" "Our wedding vows," Elena clarified. "They were made under false pretenses. You were already planning to keep me at arm's length. I didn't know what I was signing up for. I want to do it again. For real this time. With both of us fully present, fully honest, fully committed." "You want to remarry me?" Dante asked, and there was wonder in his voice. "I want to marry you properly," Elena said. "The first time, we had 500 guests and a ceremony that was all about appearances. This time, I want it to just be us. Maybe a few close friends and family, small, intimate, real. Vows that we actually mean because we know now what we're promising. What do you think?" "I think," Dante said, pulling her closer, "that I would marry you 1,000 times if it meant getting to spend my life with you." "Once is probably enough," Elena said with a laugh. "But I want to do it right this time." "Then we'll do it right," Dante promised. "Whatever you want, however you want it. As long as at the end of it you're still my wife. And you're actually my husband," Elena added. "Not just in name, but in every way that matters." "In every way that matters," Dante agreed. And that's exactly what they did. 2 months later, on a beach at sunset with only 20 people present, Elena and Dante renewed their vows. This time, when Dante promised to love and cherish her, she believed him. This time, when Elena promised to stay by his side, she meant it without reservation. This time, when the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Dante didn't give her a brief, formal kiss. He kissed her like a man who'd waited years to be able to love her publicly, deeply, obviously. And when they pulled apart, Elena saw tears in his eyes. "What's wrong?" she whispered. "Nothing," Dante said. "Everything is perfect. You're perfect. This is everything I'd hoped our wedding day would be the first time." "Better late than never," Elena said. "Better late than never," Dante agreed. They spent their second wedding night in a beachside cottage, and this time, There was no fear, no distance, no walls between them. Just two people who'd fought through hell to find each other, celebrating the love they'd almost lost, but had chosen to rebuild. The next morning, Dante woke up before Elena and just watched her sleep, something he'd denied himself for 3 years. She was beautiful in the morning light, peaceful, and she was his, fully his. No more pretending, no more distance, just theirs. Elena stirred and opened her eyes to find him watching her. "Good morning, husband," she said with a smile. "Good morning, wife," Dante replied. "Any regrets?" "Not a single one," Elena said. "You?" "Only that I didn't find a way to do this 3 years sooner," Dante said. "But I'm here now. We're here now. And that's what matters." "That's what matters," Elena agreed. "So let me ask you this, and I really want you to think about it. If you were in Elena's position, if you discovered that 3 years of pain had a reason, that your husband had been protecting you by hurting you, could you forgive that? Could you stay? Or would the 3 years of damage be too much to overcome? Comment "forgive" if you could forgive like Elena did, or comment "leave" if 3 years would have been unforgivable. And here's the deeper question. Is love that requires that much sacrifice even healthy? Or is it beautiful specifically because it costs so much? Where are you watching from? Have you ever had to sacrifice something important to protect someone you love? What would you do if you discovered someone had been hurting you to save you? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. If this story touched you, if it made you think about love and sacrifice and the impossible choices we make for the people who matter, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you for watching Lover's Corner Diary, where we share stories about love that's complicated, messy, painful, and ultimately worth fighting for. If you haven't already, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. We tell stories that make you feel, that make you think, that stay with you long after the video ends. And next week, we have something that will absolutely devastate you. A woman discovered her husband had been planning her death to collect life insurance, but what she did to turn the tables will leave you speechless. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Until then, remember this. Love isn't just about the good times. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing to forgive, and whether you can rebuild something stronger from the pieces of what broke. Sometimes the deepest love requires the hardest choices, and sometimes those choices cost us years we can never get back. But if the person is worth it, if the love is real, maybe those lost years become the foundation for something unbreakable. I'll see you in the next one.